Hi, I'm Dave Dinkel, and this is a special series of 2-minute tips, none of which are 2 minutes, because it's too important to tell you the answers to serious questions you have. The serious question in this case is, what about code violations, code liens? Somewhere along the line, some national guy probably started the idea that you don't want to buy a property unless it's a free and clear, marketable title, so on and so forth. That's great. Absolutely wonderful. Why? Because we as wholesalers will sell you that property at two different prices, one of which we clear up the liens, clear up the code violations, do all that for you, and charge you an awful lot of money. The other way is we will sell it well below that price where you can do it yourself and make a lot more money on the property. What's the difference? Timing. That's the only difference. Some code violations and code liens can be solved very quickly. We have a pit bull ordinance in Dade County, not far from here, and it says basically you can't have a pit bull. And if you do, the fine's God knows how much. But we oftentimes see them, a lien on the property by the county or a city of $1 million. The property's worth $60,000. Now the average investor would say, nah, it's not a deal. It's never going to be a deal. It is going to be a deal, and it could be spectacular. Liens and code violations are a major source of a profit center for us. So let's talk about what can be done. If there's any way we can get the seller to resolve the issue before the closing, the onus is on him. When we write the contract, I'm sure that in every contract in every state, it stipulates that the property is delivered to the buyer, clear and marketable, called fee simple title. However, if you can't deliver that, then technically the contract's invalid or you don't have to close. But let's move forward and say, he says, you're taking it the way it is. I'm not going to do that. So you have a choice. Don't close, or you close and take the property. Now, you're taking the property, and let's say you're a contractor rehabber, and that's not an issue. You can solve that problem in no time at all. Open permit, I can get that done in no time. New roof, didn't pull a permit for. Whatever it is, as a contractor or professional rehabber, it's nothing to you. Know the city people. So when you go to negotiate the lien, they say, here's a good example. I didn't know the people at the county had a $168,000 lien for unmowed grass. 9 years before, the code enforcement officer tagged the house, you got to mow the grass. Guy mowed the grass, but nobody ever came out to close the violation. So the lien went into effect, and he owed $168,000 for unmowed grass for 9 years that he had been mowing. So what did the county say to me? I said, I need to resolve this non-safety issue. I'm buying the house. It's important that I go in there and I don't have this hanging over my head. And the code enforcement officer said, come on with me. We'll go down and take care of it. The $168,000 lien, which made this deal a non-deal because he owed $250,000 as a first mortgage, cost $168 to close out. $168,168. Now, if that sounds spectacular, that's probably one of the most spectacular that I know of, especially since I was involved. But there are plenty of them that are resolved at 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. Now, if it's a safety issue, let's say the guy built on a new addition. We have a city down here that's notorious for turning 2 1s or 3 2s into 7 5s, no permits, and then renting them besides. So it's like, what's going on in that city? And it didn't matter before, but when the housing market, when the mortgage market hit the fan, the only department in a city that actually makes money is the building department. And the building department wasn't making money, so what did they do? Crack the whip and send the code enforcement officers trolling through the neighborhood for investors and for problems that had to be resolved. And then later they put into, you have to have the house re-inspected before you can sell it, before you can transfer the deed. So we've coped with these things, and we know how to cope with them for a long time. But let's say the city says to you as the buyer, you're the investor buyer, resolve the issue, and then we'll negotiate the lien. That means you'd have to pull permits, do the construction work, have it signed off as being done correctly, and then march down to the city and say, okay guys, it's a $140,000 lien, what are you going to do for me? And the city says, not much at all. We think it's worth 140. You're done. You're over with. So how do you do that? How do you make money as a wholesaler on a lien or code violation that can't be resolved before closing? Very, very simple. When you sell it to an end buyer, you fully disclose exactly what the problem is. And at closing, you put it into a hold harmless clause at the end of the closing documents. And it says, by the way, John, you're buying a property that has this particular problem and problems, and you're going to have to do these things. Your attorney will make this up for you. He signs that, you get your spread, whatever your profit margin is, and he walks away with a dictate that he has to fix those things. Can he resell it without doing it? If he doesn't have to have a reinspection by the city, he can do the same thing. He'll use the same hold harmless clause that he signed for you for his end buyer. Just because it has code violations and code liens, it's a huge opportunity, because 85% probably of other investors are going to go right by it, because in their little book it says, if it's not clear and marketable title, don't buy it. That's where the money is. Now, all through these videos, if you're watching the entire series, you're going to hear me say things that your hair may stand on end, or you're going to say, well, that's pretty obvious, or whatever. I'm telling you that whatever some other people tell you, real estate investing has made myself and my students, in many cases, multimillionaires. And we did what I'm telling you to do. I'm not here to shock you into, oh, you bought a course and now it's not going to work for you. I'm into telling you how you can make those other things work, but you need to be focused. You need persistence. If you said to me, what's the one trait that your most successful students have? It's persistence. It's not IQ. If you say to yourself, man, you got to be pretty smart to do this. No. It helps after you've become successful, or if you're still not, you can't get smarter real quick, you delegate the responsibility to people. You pay them. You pay them to do the things you don't want to do. You know, some of my students don't like to look at the closing documents until they realize they're not making as much money as they should. But they delegate that responsibility to a closing person. And that closing person does all of that for them and brings it to their attention. They charge $2,500 settlement fee. What happened? I don't know. We pay anywhere from $250 to $650 normally. What happened? Well, those are things for you to find out, but you don't want to do that. You want somebody that can do that for you. Until you're well off, making money, you have it into a program system, don't do the small details. Do what you do best. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next 2-minute tip.